Hello there everybody. A couple of weeks ago I announced that I was going to have a Q&A, and it's time to answer those questions. You have been 9 persons who have asked questions this time, and I want to thank each and every one of you 9. I hope that you will enjoy this video and my answers. Starting with the man with the golden fingers. Bad English record, Mr. Finglish. Maybe I should have answered with just my hands, but what has been the best or interesting gig you have ever seen? Well, may come as a surprise, but I think that some of the best gigs I have ever seen have been with bands that aren't all that big. Well known, so to say. I was at Stampen, Swedish jazz club, this autumn in the summer, and listened to the band that played funk and soul from the 70s. And that one was one of the best concerts that I have been to in modern times. And also I remember about 21 years ago when I was touring as a DJ on different festivals in a project that was informing about drunk driving. And we were at a place called Carlson. They have had a port festival there, and in the tent there was one of these ordinary cover bands who were playing there. But as I passed by there, I certainly all of a sudden heard that they were playing modern soul classic. Not these overplayed 60s and 70s soul that you have heard everywhere. You heard Eternal Songs Day, that was then 3 years old. You heard James Brown, Living in America, from the 80s, and I was really caught up with that, and it was so amazing. The band there was called Jam of the Year. And that might be one of the best gigs that I ever been to. If you want to have an answer when it comes to regular famous artists, I have to say that one of my favorite gigs were at when I was at the island of Öland at Borgholm, listening to soul singer Eric Gadd. That one was also amazing. The entire festival were wiggling and jamming. Have I ever been outside Sweden to any concert? And that answer is easy. I haven't. Steve Carlson. Hello there, Steve. Or as you would be named if you were Swedish, Stefan Carlson. Steve Carlson. How are you doing? How long have I been collecting? I've been buying records since 1986. Then I bought my first record. I started to see myself as a collector, though, 12 years later, back in 1998, when I reached the magical limit of 1,000 vinyl singles. I bought my 1,000th single, and then I realized that, hey, I might be a collector. I'm just buying for and not seeing myself as the guy who actually just collects. I wanted the music, and then I realized that I might label myself as a collector. Funny how you discover things in life. How did I get into it? When I was a kid, I realized that we got home these catalogs that were selling post mail order, a catalog with the records and tapes called Records and Tapes, and there were these ads on the back side of the pop magazines where you could mail, where you can order records from, and it was said that the songs were staying down below the picture of the record, and I was looking to see which songs I recognized, and I was thinking I want that one, and those songs that I enjoyed in Swedish radio. So that way it became, I wanted those songs that I remembered from my childhood, and then it has just kept growing and growing. What genres do you most enjoy? It's easier to ask what I don't enjoy. As you may have not been noticing when you've seen my videos, my musical taste is almost everywhere. From balladeers to funk, soul, jazz, and even Swedish Schlager, Eurovision Song Contests from the past, and everything. But the most I enjoy, and the genres that at the moment is most frequently played here in my apartment is 80s, of course, jazz, of course, soul from different kind of eras, 70s and 80s, and 90s Eurodance music. What are some of your favorite albums? And a couple of years ago, I showed this. This is the bag that I bought, containing that I put my absolute favorite records. I'm going to show them here. We have here Jean-Michel Jarre's Oxygen. We have Scritti Politti, Cupid and Psyche from the 85 Magnificent Summer album. We have German singer Sandra and her album Into a Secret Land. Dreamy and beautiful 80s pop disco. Depeche Mode, of course, Violator. Level 42, Running in the Family. Really funky and amazing album. Alphaville, Forever Young. Have so much memories from my childhood with this album, and it's definitely one of the most well-made albums ever. Nick Kershaw, The Riddle, also a lot of memories. And we have the best album ever, Susanna Hoff from Bangles, and her solo album When You're a Boy. And we have Paul Hardcastle's self-titled, the first album I ever bought, back in 1986. Fleetwood Mac, Rumours, of course. Best album of the 70s. Best favorite jazz albums. Lenny Tristano and Earl Swoop Sextet. The Lost Sessions. Really magnificent 40s jazz. And Boyd Rayburn's Broadcast Rare Performances. albums that I heard on radio as a child. So these were my absolute favorite albums ever. Count that in also classics like Michael Jackson's Thriller, of course, Madonna's Ray of Light or Like a Virgin and so on. So thank you for your questions, Steve Carlson, and thank you, Mr. Finglish, for your questions. Hi Rant District, Tom, how are you doing? It was good to hear from you. I hope all is well. All is well, with exception from a very boring weather outside. If you don't have the lights on in the house, you don't know whether it is daylight or nighttime. What is your favorite Swedish record label? That was a hard question. We have been having some really interesting record labels. Swedish labels, however, often is connected to the era from the 70s with punk rock or prog music like Nacksving, and a great label known as MNV, Musiknätverket Vaxholm. MNV has released records with some of my absolute favorite artists, Peter Lemark and Eldkvarn. But other than that, were also a whole lot of prog music that I'm not all that into. We have dance labels like Telegram that were really great. One of my favorite artists from that label, Titio. We have Stranded. It was great in the 80s with Ratata and Mauro Scocco. But I think still my absolute favorite label, and your other question, one of the other questions of yours were, who are your favorite artists from that label? That one was the hardest questions because many of the artists of these the labels I like from Sweden are labels that releases a whole lot of compilations and so on. They don't have any specific artists. And those who have specific artists, as I said, many of them are prog or punk labels, or those big artists that are contracted to the Swedish version of the big labels, BMG and Universal and so on. The closest is Metronome in that case, that released some really great jazz during the 50s and beginning of the 60s, until they started also to release a whole lot of prog music. So I have a hard time seeing Metronome as one of my absolute favorites, even though they were amazing during the jazz era. But my absolute favorite is a label that is very small. It is specified on jazz, namely Swedish jazz. That label's name is Dragon Records. Dragon Records is owned by Swedish radio journalist and music producer for the Swedish radio, Lars Westin, among others, who I've met once, a really nice guy. And that label releases Swedish jazz, And we're not talking about the most ordinary here, the best of that and the most famous songs. It's taken mostly an artist's era, a specific time during an artist's career, and releasing the best tracks from that era. Have some really great here. We have here Stan Hasselgaard, or Åke Hasselgaard, as in was born in my city, Sundsvall, actually. This here they have released Stan Hasselgaard, who became a big name, playing with, among others, Benny Goodman. He was also doing some shows in the show Jubilee, that was a huge American radio show. And here they have released some songs from his performances of that American radio show. We have here James Moody and his Swedish Crowns. James Moody did a gig here in Sweden in late 40s, and all of a sudden, I think it was Anders Burman, the man who actually started the label Metronome. He got very excited and asked James Moody if he wanted to play with Swedish musicians, which he wanted. So Dragon has released the recordings that were made during the 40s with James Moody with Swedish musicians. And we have here Swedish big band leader Sam Samson. I might call it some Swedish version of some Swedish Duke Ellington. Also released on Dragon. And so they don't have a specific artist. They're releasing the recordings that have been released before, but doing that in some kind of a theme release from a specific era of one career. If you're going to name one favorite of all the jazz artists that they have been releasing, I'm naming Arne Domnerus, because this album with Arne Domnerus and his favorite groups, 1949 to 50, is really labeled there. It's really fantastic Swedish jazz at its best. So I really like this Dragon label because they're releasing the absolute best jazz Swedish jazz music that in jazz history.